Are you eating it or fucking it?
Welcome to the Bullshirt podcast, episode 50-something.
50-something.
Thank you all for tuning in.
What do they call that, a cold open?
I would say it's a hot open, right?
No, it's a cold open. So we
But
didn't have any music or any indication that we were starting. We just started.
But I feel like a hot open makes more sense.
Well, theater and TV have been doing it longer than you, and they call it a cold open.
Well, if they've been doing it longer, they must be doing it right, because there's no super old institutions that are flawed.
Absolutely. Not a single one. So,
Yep, that's why things never change.
No. There you go. We have solved the mysteries of the universe right there, buddy.
All right, have a good one, everybody.
And that's it. Nothing more to know. Nothing ever changes. Adam, you're getting lazy.
I haven't produced much music lately. I've been very busy.
I don't believe that.
I have been busy.
What have you been doing?
Packing.
He discovered his taint.
I discovered you can get the last little bit of pee out if you just push your taint a little bit after you get done peeing.
Oh, absolutely, dude. Kind of like
Yeah.
little milk in the prostate.
Yeah, so
That's a fucking lazy. Wait till you get our age and you kind of have to do that.
Yeah, it's fun.
Mm-hmm. So, where are you packing to go?
Nowhere in particular. I'm just hitting the old dusty trail, you know. I'm thinking, change the scenery.
Mm-hmm. Just ride off into the sunset.
Yeah. I'm just gonna hop on the old horse, you know, get some more saddle time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm into the old stirrups and hit the old dusty trail.
Don't forget your chaps.
Forget my chaps.
Yep.
And these don't have an ass in them.
No chaps
no
do,
chaps
really.
do.
I know,
right, otherwise
I
they're
know.
leather pants.
I know.
Okay. Look, Doug and I were offended.
I know. That was the idea.
Like, listen, Adam.
My assless chaps, which are very different from other chaps.
Actually.
Well, I just you need to put on your chaps and walk around with your wang and your ass out. It's awesome.
It really chaps my ass.
If you think for a minute that I've never thrown my chaps on with absolutely nothing underneath, you are kidding yourself.
We've met. I don't doubt it at all.
I didn't want to imagine that, though.
Yeah,
That's-
too late. You're welcome.
Well,
That's like the
I didn't want to see
least shocking statement ever.
Yeah, that's true. Sorry, I'm eating a Crunch Wrap from Taco Bell because apparently a friend of mine and I were talking about this. You know, COVID hits. She works part-time at a Lowe's. She has her own business, but she works at a Lowe's part-time. And she's talking about how short-staffed they are, right? And we're discussing that. And it's like, COVID killed like 1 million people and all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but the thing is that places like Lowe's and Taco Bell and McDonald's and all that are typically, staffed by younger folks because it's a first job kind of thing, right? And not to like put it down or anything, but like it's a low skill job that a lot of people can
unskilled
do.
labor. Yes.
Right, a lot of people can do it, and so they do it. But now all of a sudden, all like the grocery store, the Safeway over there, they're hiring for every department. The Taco Bell is understaffed, and it takes 20 to 30 minutes to get through the line. I'm not even kidding. So on and so forth. So where is everyone? Like, COVID didn't kill that many people, and people have got to work. They're not doing stimulus checks anymore. Where the
Right.
fuck is everybody?
They enrolled in college.
I don't buy that either.
That's what happened.
But
Because
They've
you
still
can just
gotta-
perpetually stay in college and never owe the money back as long as you're taking a full load.
I know people that have done that, but they still have jobs to pay for rent and food and take porn.
But at the same time, staring at the people that did it, stared at four walls for a couple of years. will sometimes make you reevaluate your life choices. And the trend has been, jobs that are low skilled and generally had what were, sort of in the corporate world before, kind of disposable workers. Their value has gone up. And because you have a lot of boomers retiring out of the system the same time that all of this stuff really lit up, you've got people that are moving into opportunities that they otherwise would have been unable to not too long ago.
I see what you're saying.
You've got a mass exodus of boomers, and then you've got people moving in to fill those positions, and everything's kind of shifting. But as opposed to it happening naturally and gradually, it all sort of happened at once. That's the way that I've read it and understood it.
And the friend that I was talking to, that was some of the points she brought up. Exactly, right? And I told her, I'll tell you what I told her. I just don't feel like the math adds up. I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm not saying that what you're stating isn't true and happening. But does it still seem like that math adds up the way that you see it? I mean, when a Taco Bell, there are places
of remote tech work has caused people to just do that instead of going for like minimum wage in-person jobs. Because I know a couple people who got on with this company and all they do is build websites off commission. So you build a few websites a week and you get basically all that you need to live and pay all your bills. And it's literally an in-house editor that's like Wix.
Right. And that's right. And there's, they've been predicting or stating for the last, 5 or 10 years that computer programming or like what you're talking about is the new blue collar. Mm-hmm. So maybe there is some validity to that too, that it's just, there's a saying, a death by 1,000 cuts. Right. And that's what we're seeing here is it's not one thing, but like Doug said, a bunch of little things that are adding up. And I know that at one point, there was some speculation that a lot of these companies took like PPE loans and all of these loans from the federal government during COVID. And that the whole thing is that when COVID was over and they started hiring people again, because I think that was part of it, like they couldn't find workers and they had to shut down and stuff like that. And supposedly when it was all over and they started bringing people back in, that they'd have to pay back these loans. And I forget where I heard this or read it, but there was speculation that a lot of companies were
being short on purpose.
Yeah, we're purposely being short-staffed because they can get away with it. And as we know, if you can cut down your labor cost and still maintain customers, there's a breaking point, right? But like that, the Taco Bell that the three of us go to, I think they still do. They were closing at they used to be 24/7 and now they're closing at 9 o'clock.
And they stopped doing breakfast over there. Breakfast requires a separate grill. A lot of people don't know that, but most food places have a separate grill for food because it's cooked at a hotter temperature than every other food that you make.
And so you got to start to question too. But then I'm sure companies are looking at bottom line and saying, okay,
we are experiencing technical difficulties. We will be back with you momentarily. Stick around for the exciting conclusion of the Bullshirt podcast, featuring all of your favorite characters: Doug, Dan, and Adam.
So you've got to question whether or not at that point, if staying open is even worth it. You've heard that this is the first time you've ever heard this. This is all new to you. So,
yeah.
We had some technical difficulties and had to restart the recording. So we apologize for the continuity issues you're about to encounter.
There was a glitch in the Matrix. So I'm not sure what that's about, but
something with a cat stuttering while it was walking.
My cat stutters all the time. Especially when they're yelling. Dan, you were making point about corporations and the bottom line. The last thing that we sort of hit, but one of the things about
the baby boomers and retirement. Uh, since you had a multi-year span where there weren't many children born, and then when you had everybody come back in 45 and 46, and then you had the baby boom, you had a generation that, basically they all went through everything at the same time. It was a problem while they were all going to school, because schools had to expand the whole 9 yards. And now they're hitting retirement age. And as a lot of these people are coming out of the labor force, they're coming out of the labor force in mass. So, they've been doing that the entire time. So that's what's opened up a lot of these positions. I mean, even at the place where we work, we've had a few people retire here recently.
On I do know that quite a few people took early retirement. You're 62 years old, COVID hits, and you're like, yep, I'm out. And that makes complete sense. I don't know. It's just been weird to watch how the service industry, especially, and just the labor force seems to be so diminished just all of a sudden. It was just really odd. But, hey, COVID changed a lot of things, right? And will continue to change things, I guess. So it was just an odd conversation that she and I had. It was a good conversation. And then rolling through Taco Bell, you see the same kid at the window 7 days a week. It's like, damn, son, do you ever go home?
It's like, I hope they're paying them well.
And they ain't, but dude's probably making overtime, which is not something you do very often in fast food or food service, in general. But, and, like I said earlier, I'm not shitting on anybody who has a job like that, because you have a job. That's all I care about. People say, I know, like, when you're dating and stuff, I know women that'll say, I watch how a guy treats the waiter, right? I treat wait staff very well because I waited tables for many years. But then again, I try to treat everybody with respect until given a reason not to. But I treat people behind counters because I've been that guy, right? It's hard work and it's shit pay. But I always tell people there's a lot of people out there that can do it. So they can get away with paying low. But that feels like it's changing. And we know what companies are going to do, right? Companies are just going to pass it off onto the consumer. They're going to pass it off onto us. Shit's going to get more. Well, we've got to pay our people a living wage now, Well, and it's like, you could not make $1 trillion in stock, just saying.
But if your company doesn't make more money every year, then,
But you can still make more money, and you can still make fucking incredible money, but it doesn't have to be, your profit margin doesn't have to be bigger than the gross fucking domestic profit.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
A small country,
That's like the conundrum of like publicly traded companies, is that they have to be sleaze bags or people start selling all their stock and then they really go under.
Yeah, because the people that are big in stock, or if that's how they're making their money, most of them simply just don't give a fuck about
the employees of the company or anything. Yeah, they just want to make money. That's why you trade stock.
And it's funny, and I don't know why that exactly reminded me of that, but you guys know who Mark Cuban is, right?
Yes.
Okay. So Mark Cuban started a website, and it sells generic medication, generic drugs. And it's called Mark Cuban's, and then the name of the website. He's really attaching his name to it. And I wish I could remember what it was called, because I'm actually going to look it up because I would like to pimp it out here. It's called Cost Plus Drug Company. So it's called Mark Cuban's Cost Plus Drug Company. And he breaks down exactly what they get it for, and then all of the different prices that they put on it, or the profit that they're making, or whatever. And it's actually pretty fucking cool. Like you do. Mark Cuban has always been a little bit different, though, I think, as far as, stupid rich people go. If you look back, he's got quite a bit of philanthropic stuff. I'm sure someone is going to send me an email on something terrible he did as a teenager, like he kicked a dog or something. But I think if you look at it,
well, he didn't fuck a goat or shove a gerbil in his ass, because those stories hang around for decades.
A long time, right? But like the one, I can't remember. There's one of the drugs, the little commercial that I saw for it. He did they were showing the price of a drug that's something like insulin, something like if you don't have it when you're at this point, you're going to die. And he showed how much cheaper it is and everything. And I just think it's cool because I'm not an anti-American guy. I'm very patriotic. I love the United States. I love capitalism. But at some fucking point, something's got to give. And when what was that guy's name, Adam? I know you'll know it. That bought the rights to insulin or whatever it was.
Martin Shkreli.
There you go.
It wasn't insulin. It was, I can't remember the specific drug, but there were a laundry list of conditions that particular drug was needed for.
Yeah.
And it's one of those where if you didn't have it, you might croak.
Yeah.
And jacked it up like 7,000%.
Yeah.
Right.
He just got out of prison, did a crypto scam for like $600,000 and stole everyone's money.
Well, and then he did the whole thing where you could buy a date with him or some shit. And I'm like, gag. So yeah, it's just, I thought it was pretty cool as I was reading up on it. It's real straightforward. And it's just to me, that is, listen, Mark Cuban's making money on this, I'm sure, on the back end or something. But I feel like when you if I got to the point where I was literally a billionaire, I would do shit like that. Like I would set up nonprofits and I would do things where I might lose a little bit of money. It's one of those things where you start looking at the books and you're like, oh yeah, I'm losing millions a year. Oh, look, I'm still a stupid fucking billionaire.
Literally
right?
Nothing I can't buy anyway.
Right. Like I could lose millions every year and it simply does not hurt me because I have so fucking much. I feel like when you get to the level of a Jeff Bezos and shit, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I feel like you owe it to fucking humanity to do something good with that money. I really do. And there will be people that argue with me. I don't care. I will always think you are wrong. Because once you've hit a certain point, it's just excess. What are you doing with it? I mean,
what makes Mark Cuban, his formula, unique as far as the way you're bringing the website across about it? The key word here is transparency.
Mm-hmm.
And for years, that's what has helped to fuel the increasing cost, because contracts are always negotiated. The details of it are always secret. So person X doesn't, or corporation X doesn't know what corporation Y paid for it. And it's everything's been wrapped up in that. And that's been a large point of contention, especially I believe it's referred to as the charge master when you start talking about hospitals.
Mm-hmm.
And the charge master price was developed so that insurance companies could tell their members that they were getting a discount.
Mm.
But what is actually happening is they were being billed, the cost that it would actually cost someone to do something. So insurance companies went to them, wanted a discount, and they're like, "We're not giving you a discount." Then they came up with a whole charge master scheme, and then around the same time, you had the law that was passed into place about somebody could not be denied treatment because of their lack of an ability to pay or lack of insurance.
Mm-hmm.
You had both of those two that came in at the same time. So hospitals looked at it and went, okay, here's what we're going to do. If you don't have insurance, we're going to charge some ridiculous fucking price in the official charge master, and
Mhm.
then that will help to subsidize any of the
Gotcha.
people that don't have the ability to pay in the whole 9 yards. But the whole thing was based around everything being super fucking secret, because even, companies that had a charge master on the books, if you called them and asked them what an operation was going to cost, they wouldn't fucking tell you.
And that's a brilliant it's a brilliant plan, because people who don't have insurance usually are absolutely capable of fronting tens of thousands of dollars for a surgical procedure that they need, right? So it makes complete sense to charge people with no insurance astronomically.
Well, we've
And
had that discussion about having no money cost you more money.
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, we absolutely. We've done on the podcast, and I know that for me, I don't know about you guys. I do know, because anybody listening would know, if you call a doctor right now and ask, "Are you accepting new patients?" They will say, "Who is your insurance provider?" They don't say yes. They don't say no. They answer your question with another question. I challenge anyone to test me on this, because as I went through doctors and psychiatrists and even therapists, the first fucking thing out of their mouth was, "Who is your insurance carrier?" Now, I have good insurance. I pay a lot for it, but it's pretty good insurance. So I am fortunate. I am privileged in that arena. When I had my hernia operation, it was roughly $35,000. Um, if you didn't have insurance, you would just have to deal with that. Medical care is funky, man. It really is.
Indeed.
And wasn't it? Anyone who has listened to this podcast for more than a couple of episodes knows how Doug, Adam, and I feel about former President Donald Trump. We are not exactly what you would consider fans. However,
I'm a fan, dude. I'm a huge fan.
you are a Trumper.
That's me.
You are a Trump-tard.
I am Q.
I am. You are Q. I knew it. All this time I knew it. It was probably the big Q t-shirt that you kept wearing to work days and days and days without washing it. I do believe, and Doug will be able to spot check me here because he follows this stuff better than I do. But did he not sign into law something about transparency with hospitals and just medical in general?
There was something.
I thought so.
Yeah, and it's like I don't. It was something to do, and then at the same time, it wasn't a big, huge deal, but
Mhm.
it was something. And I know that's about as non-specific in general
He
as I
did
could
something at some
humanly
time.
be, but there was something related to healthcare. It was like in his last. I think it was in his last year, maybe last 2 years, where there was some healthcare related bill that he had signed. At the same time they were trying to tear down the Affordable Care Act, which was really interesting.
Well, so it says what I found is that on October 29th, 2020, the Department of Health and Human Services, Treasury, and Labor issued the Transparency in Coverage Final Rule. The rule imposes new transparency requirements on group health plans and health insurers in the individual and group markets. That's the one that I'm thinking. And it says, under the final rule, plans and insurers must disclose cost-sharing estimates at the request of an enrollee and publicly release negotiated rates for in-network providers, historical out-of-network allowed amounts and billed charges, and drug pricing information. And
yeah,
like I said,
still they didn't just put that shit up on a website. You still got to request it. That's what I remember the thing being at the time, that it was. It was a measure of transparency, but it wasn't a big, huge thing. But I do give the guy credit for a few things that he did. There's not many.
No. I was just having a conversation with somebody about that. It was actually I went out on a date last week, and she and I were just, politics now. You have to, you kind of have to discuss that now because it's so damn polarizing, right? And so it's just something
I hate that shit, dude.
I mean, nowadays I have to. Well, that dude, like the dating apps, you have to. I put on there that I'm vaccinated because there are people that are like, proudly unpoisoned, and I'm a I'm pure blood's the other one. I'm a pure blood, and then you'll be flipping through a chick's pictures, and all of a sudden the fourth picture is her in a big banner across her chest that says, "Let's go, Brandon," and shit like that, But yeah, politics, vaccinations, Q, things like that. You have to discuss that now because no one's moderate. I was just telling somebody the other day that another big thing is I understand when somebody who is ultra liberal or fiercely liberal, as I keep seeing on the dating apps, I understand if you are fiercely liberal and you say no Trumpers, or if you are a huge conservative, let's go Brandon type, and you're like, no Biden lovers, no liberals, whatever. But the new thing now, and I'm seeing it more, well, I'm actually seeing it on both sides pretty good, but mostly I think from the liberal side. People will say, I'm fiercely liberal, no conservatives or moderates. So now I'm being punished for being a moderate, for believing that.
I don't think it's being punished that you don't get to date a crazy person.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think you're getting hard tipped up front. That's just, hi, here's a nice big glaring red flag for you.
just out there with the big flag, just back and forth. I mean, I guess I guess I'm looking at it from a different perspective in that now you're going to go after moderates. And I made the joke that's how Rome fell. So just saying that, you go after the folks that are trying to go up the middle. But I was talking to this woman, we were discussing it, and she said, listen, she goes, I'm not a Trump fan. She said, but I'm not going to be mad at you if you voted for Trump or whatever. She said, it's when the only thing you can say about him, if I say, hey, what did you like about his presidency? And the best thing that you could come up with is he ain't Obama. She's like, if you want to talk about some of his trade reform and stuff like that, great. And like we were just saying, he did the transparency thing, and there were some trade changes that he made. I personally feel like some of the other shit he did was but at least we ain't got no mean tweets. Bro, I don't give a fuck about the mean tweets. The whole insurrection was a little bit of a problem for me.
That and the abandonment of logic with, it's like, hey, the election was stolen from me, and I've got all this evidence that I really can't present in court because it's absolute bullshit, and my lawyers didn't want to be disbarred, but the election was totally stolen from me.
Right.
9 yards. It's like, get the fuck out of here with that shit. For me, the worst people, the absolute worst people are the ones that accuse everyone else of what they are actively doing.
Well, that is a narcissist. A narcissist at their very core will absolutely do that. It's gaslighting. It's a type of gaslighting where you are actively blaming other people for things you are doing and just saying, nuh-uh.
Right. Well, see, that's why it's like, I'm unaffiliated. I don't whole flag support Democrats. I don't whole flag support Republicans. I think there's some decent ideas in between them if you combine them in the right way. But if you go to one side or the other, things kind of get a little kooky.
No, I agree completely. And that's going up, no side is always right.
No.
And you have people that, well, I don't really agree, but he's a God-fearing Republican, so I gotta vote for him.
That's
fuck
so
off with
fucking
that.
stupid, dude.
Right? Fuck off with that. I don't want to hear that shit.
Yeah, that's been my beef with the Republican Party over the last 12 to, really 12 years. It has been, okay, do the thing and then accuse the other side of exactly what you're doing. And when I say that, the best example that I can give you is this whole election integrity movement, that their sole purpose is to actively undermine election integrity.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Let's take the Democratic election and completely wipe our ass with it and put in who we want.
And another example of that is kind of two things. One, I loved when Trump was in office and all of his disciples were running around with the bumper stickers that said, I don't care about your fucking feelings and stuff like that. But then, buddy, right after he got booted for Biden, their feelings were hurt. They wanted to talk about everything that was so unfair and not right.
After the Democrats just got done saying there was Russian meddling that got Trump elected the first time, now there was suddenly meddling, and they didn't want to hear it. That never happens. Right. It's a conspiracy theory,
right?
Until their guy loses, and then it probably definitely happened.
And then it was Russian meddling on the Democrat side because of Hillary. We went back to Hillary again. And the thing about that is, go back to 2016 when they were running. I can't tell you how many sound bites and clips of Trump stating that the feds should investigate her and lock her up. They were chanting that, for fuck's sake. But it was all about the feds. He wanted the feds in there. But then, just here a few weeks back, when the feds came bumping into Mar-a-Lago, I think it was, whichever one of his houses, and we're like,
it's
hey,
not
we need
his house legally. He's not allowed to live there, but he lives there anyway.
Yeah, and they came in and said, hey, we need to see some things. And all of these fucking rednecks started screaming. Even politicians were going online as stating that the feds were being used as that the FBI was being used as a weapon. They were weaponizing it and all that. And I'm like, hold the fuck up. When you start doing that, and by that I mean accusing your FBI of shit that you have no proof of, right? You and I both know, hey, yeah, do I think the feds are completely transparent and everything they've done is no, we know better. But at the same time, at some
point, you're showing dissent in your own country.
Exactly. For your own personal, political, and financial gain. And that to me is the most fucked up thing you can do. That is
they're going with
treason.
It's like the amount of people that voted against Trump last time, and the fucked up shit that he's done, and the groups that he's alienated. One of the oldest tricks in the book is, if you can't win the game, you change the fucking rules, and that's what they're trying really hard to do. And I sincerely say this, it's like, if you're listening to this podcast and you're a Republican, I'm not shitting on you.
Right.
It's like, I'm just not.
We're conservatives in general.
There are a certain sect of people that align themselves with the Republican Party that they're seeing the writing on the wall, as opposed to trying to actively change to incorporate some new ideas in a new strategy to breathe new life into the party. What they're actively doing is just going out and trying to change the rules to where they can install whoever, regardless. I mean, and they may not be able to affect that much change, but make no mistake, that's what the intent is.
And I feel like
that's why the whole, that's why it starts off with we the people. The government is its power derives from the consent of the governed, and they're trying to take that part out of it.
Absolutely.
And that's the last thing anybody freaking wants, because here's what I'm going to say. If you're a Republican and this is offending you, I'm terribly sorry, because this can also turn around and flip 180 degrees. And if you don't think you can't wind up with a Democrat that is nuttier than squirrel shit and who also has a power trip, I mean, just think bizarro Donald Trump. Just take all of his policies, leave the personality intact, but take all of his policies, flip them 180 degrees, and that person would try the same shit, and you would be, and all the stuff that has been thrown around for years because everybody loves to mudsling about communists and the whole 9 yards, you might wind up with a real fucking communist.
Oh, absolutely. And I think I've always said that I think liberals and liberalism starts to lean very hard towards communism and socialism. And I hear a lot of people say, well, that wouldn't be such a bad thing. And we're a democratic socialist, nation and all that. And my argument is always, yeah, I understand that. But again, it's a middle ground. When you get into pure socialism or pure communism
or pure capitalism,
right.
All of the above are bad.
Name me one country that has sustained it and been, Russia's the closest thing. But again, if you talk to anyone who is actually from Russia and, left there, I had a neighbor that was, she had left and was not a fan, bread lines and things of that nature. And then if you go the other direction to the ultra conservatives, you start getting into fascism, right? It's a very, very sensitive ecosystem that we're in. And it's not pure democratic. It's not pure Republican. It's not pure capitalist. It's not, you know what I mean? There is no pure, really, any of it. Because like you said, they're all bad. Because
if you were
when
pure
you become
capitalist, you would be so shitty. I've been playing this game called Nation States. It's very old, and I'm making my country pure capitalist, bro. All the problems. There's so much pollution. There's so much crime because I don't have any social programs. So like, if it doesn't make you money, there's no reason to do it.
Nobody does it, right?
So there's like no streetlights or any sort of infrastructure or anything like that because you can't
subscribe to streetlights.
Can't charge people per use of a streetlight.
Right. We very much are, and being I have voted libertarian, and even in the libertarian side, there is the extreme, and they're kind of like the anarchists, and they're like, we don't need government. We don't need to pay taxes. People can fix their own roads and shit like that. So
what are you running for?
Did you ever, there was a town.
Yeah. I know where you're going with this.
It was like in New Hampshire or somewhere. It was up in the upper Northeast. And if you start researching into it, you had some people who were the strictest definition, or you could just call them libertarian nut jobs. Moved in, took over the town council, the whole 9 yards, started abolishing a whole bunch of services, and fucking bears showed up.
Because of the trash, wasn't it?
The trash and some other stuff. And since they had no infrastructure, because it was all as libertarian as you could possibly be, the bears basically took over the fucking town.
So what you're saying is that bears support libertarianism. That we have libertarian bears.
Are naturally libertarian.
They heard about it. Bears are libertarian. I will totally go with
libertarian.
That. Yeah.
The libertarian bears. Berenstein got nothing on these bears. And that's the thing. I do believe that socialist programs such as Social Security and roads and lights and things that you pay out of your taxes and things like that, Liber-Bearian. Jesus.
Adam, you have to say that out loud. Come on, say it. Say it, Adam.
Adam.
Do we have sound effects still? Right, do we still have sound effects? Yeah, Adam decided they were called Liber-Bearian.
Liber-Bearians.
I do believe, I've always said, I actually got into a relatively heated argument with somebody, I think at work one day, which is unusual for me, that I said, I am okay with some of my tax dollars going to programs like welfare and stuff like that. And he said, I'm not. And now you got to understand, this particular dude is about as white privileged as you've ever seen in your fucking life. I don't think he's ever had to struggle in his life. And for him to say that made me sick to my stomach. He's like, family can just take care of each other and stuff like that. And I'm like, wow. Okay. Yeah. Cause everybody has that. So I'll just go on record as saying, like, I don't mind that some of my money goes towards welfare and things like that. Right. I really don't
either.
As long as it's used,
Well,
responsibly and stuff.
Well, it also goes back to the same thing of you had people that it's like you had people that were really hard anti-vaccine,
Mm-hmm.
and some of the people that were really hard anti-vaccine got COVID, and when many of those people went to the hospital, the first thing they did is they was like, "Oh my God, this is real. Please give me the vaccine." And
How that
they have
works.
to, and they have to say, "Well, it's too late for that now."
Right. Right.
And I know this from firsthand experience. My mother works in a hospital, and I have this. This isn't something that I just found on 4chan or some weird shit and decided to repeat it, or on Facebook or anything else. It is anecdotal, but I do have firsthand accounts to go along with the news stories that I have seen that have also confirmed it.
Yeah,
So
I know that
yeah,
personally happened
when it,
to someone that I know.
yeah, I mean, so it's one of those, they're against it until it affects them. You know what I mean? If they were in a scenario where you show up to the place that you work one day and they just close the fucking doors, and then you've got to figure out what you're going to do. And if you're the type of person that has lived paycheck to paycheck up until that point, and hats off to you for getting out there, working, and being a productive human. But when you find yourself with no other options, that's what those
Mhm.
social programs are designed for.
Mhm.
Are there people that take advantage of it?
Of
Yes.
course. But I think
there are
that's a
people
small
that take
percentage.
advantage of everything.
Everything, right.
that you can possibly imagine.
Right.
You guys
Someone
remember when?
taking advantage of it, even fucking coupons, for Christ's sake.
Do you guys remember when Arkansas, I think it was, started drug testing to get food stamps,
Yes,
and
I
everybody
do.
passed, and they wasted a bunch of money on the drug testing?
Yeah.
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 They thought they were going to save so much money and
Yep.
kick all these heroin addicts off of their food stamps.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to be
found
completely
nobody.
open and honest about something. I'll be completely transparent. I was for that. I was actually for that, and I'll tell you why. Is because most companies nowadays drug test for
Employment. Yeah.
And I said, okay, if nothing else, maybe it keeps somebody clean, while they're getting food stamps or whatever. But then, like you
Right.
said, the numbers didn't add up. These
Well, it
folks
seems
weren't-
like there's this big myth that like everyone on food stamps is just a lazy like drug
Right.
addict, especially like in
Because that
conservative
helps
areas.
sell a narrative.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
It helps you cut down on your social programs if you can say
Right.
there's no use except for helping out these freeloaders,
Yep.
which isn't really the case anywhere.
And if you're a guy who works 60 hours a week and you're busting your ass to feed your kids, if you're some blue collar dude out in Idaho or somewhere and you're busting your ass 60 hours a week to feed your kids, feed your family, right? And they can drum up that kind of hatred and they can drum up that kind of, agitation, then they can get your vote. This guy cares. He's going to get all these freeloading minority fucking drug addicts and kick them off welfare and save me a bunch of tax money. No, he ain't, dude. No, he ain't. They're going to find a way to pocket that money. They're going to find somewhere. See, I tell people I'm right up the middle, and because it really depends on what you're talking about. If you're talking about what people can do with their bodies, right? I'm pro-choice, but I love when people tell me I'm pro-abortion. Like I'm just running around with some ether and a fucking coat hanger, just going to town.
I think abortion should be mandatory.
Absolutely, right? I mean, That's where I stand. Jesus, fuck people. I'm pro-choice, right? Because I don't have any religious bullshit to tell me that, that it's wrong. One, two, if it is wrong, let God figure that shit out. I ain't here to do it. If you're doing stuff with your body, if you want to be a woman, if you identify as a fucking attack helicopter, whatever it is, as long as you're not trying to fuck children or hurt anybody, do whatever the fuck you want as long as you're not hurting anybody. But then when it comes to money, I'm very conservative. Like we've had the conversation maybe even on here about the homeless. And especially out in Colorado and Denver, there's a huge homeless population, like homeless camps and shit. It's crazy, right? And there was this big thing where they wanted to throw a bunch of money at it. And I voted against that as part of the thing that, you know, I voted against it. People are like, how could you? You're heartless. Listen, there is already a ton of money out there for the homeless. There are programs for them. I have talked to homeless people in several states. A lot of them are either have mental health issues and don't know it. But believe it or not, a very large chunk of them don't want the kind of help that you think that they want. They want you to give them some money so they can go eat, right? Or buy smokes or fucking soda, whatever it is they want. But they don't want to live life like you do. A very large portion of them, they don't want to go to work every day. They don't want to own a home.
I have a homeless hot take.
Go for it.
I think Denver should construct a Skid Row in the same way that LA did.
Mm-hmm.
Because if people don't want to stop being homeless, you can't fix the problem. And the best that you could do is contain it. If you actually look into
Skid Row,
it's actually a pretty... It was intentional. It wasn't just a big homeless camp that became a thing. Like, they intentionally zoned it and built it, and they use like psychological things to sort of mark the edges, like big bright spotlights and things, and contain it by only enforcing like loitering and things like that outside of Skid Row.
Right outside. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I actually think that's a brilliant idea. And the problem is a lot of your do-gooders and folks, they're like, no, we need to help them and get them. And they want to.
I mean, on the surface, it sounds like a really shitty idea because you're just creating this shithole, basically.
Right. But you're keeping them in one place. It's safer for a lot of people, including them. If you've ever seen a homeless camp, even after, you know, Boulder was dozing homeless camps and stuff, the amount of needles and feces and blood and just they're not happy places, right?
Yeah.
And I do feel bad for the folks that do. I feel bad for the folks that have got mental health issues. Like I've never been particularly like quiet about my own mental health issues on this podcast. I've talked about them a lot because they're a big part of who I am. And they've made me, I remember about 6 months ago when I was going through like my nervous breakdown, I was seeing homeless people and I would look at them and they'd be twitching and talking to themselves. And I remember I told Adam and Doug, I said, you know, I looked at these folks and I thought, I'm not as bad off as I kind of feel like I am sometimes, because I still know the difference between reality and not reality, right? Some of these folks don't. And I do feel bad for the people who have mental health issues and could benefit from counseling or medication or whatever, and might be more contributing members of society. But a lot of them, I remember talking to a guy, this was in Columbus, this wasn't out here. And it was when I was in bands and we had just gotten done with the show or whatever. And I was standing outside and we're all shit faced and stoned. And, you know, this guy comes up and he's asking for money and we just start talking. And towards some point in the conversation, somebody said something about there was a church up the road that, you know, they had beds and all this stuff. And he's like, man, fuck that place. You can't drink there. You got to be in by 10 and you got to be sober and all this stuff. And I actually have heard that narrative a couple of times since then. And that really changed. And people could say, well, it was one guy, it was two guys. Okay, well, again, how many homeless people have you really talked to? And you know, I mean, of course, when they're on the side of the road, they're going to tell you, oh, I want whatever it is that you think I should want for you to give me that $5.
Yeah.
You know, they're playing you, dude. They don't want the same life that you do. And that's fine, right? That's okay. But you're right. They should, it makes more sense to construct an area where they are safe and like monitored. They're still free. You can still leave. You can leave Skid Row. Just don't go panhandling or breaking into houses and cars.
The biggest problem around LA was that like one suburb would push them out and then they would just go to another one.
And that's what they're doing here. That is exactly what's happening here. Yep. So you're probably right that they need to construct something like that. And again, you want to use my tax dollars for that? Fine. But stop trying to take my tax dollars to open up shelters and clinics and all this stuff that they don't want to use. Yeah. They're not interested in that.
By the same token, what I would say, as opposed to saying, okay, the solution is to put them all in one place or to do what have you, I would think that if you're going to be intelligent about it and you're going to approach it in the most calculated way possible, I think you need to throw an economist at it because that it's costing you one way or another. The question is going to be what gives us the best outcome for the money, because just like you were saying earlier, you can obviously just throw money at a problem. We can construct a special area, we can construct housing, we can make clinics, we can do all of the above. But there have been various cities that have tried all of these options. And if you really wanted to do something about it, you would figure out what homelessness is costing you just with no intervention, which is almost the way it is now, but not quite.
Right.
If you could quantify those costs, then you can do a cost benefit analysis. This is the thing that works the best for this amount of money. And it could be set aside. And, it's when we were talking about the mental health thing, and, I completely get it. One thing I think that we do need to bring back, we just don't need to bring it back at the same scale, is mental institutions, because, most of those over the country got shut down, and there were some obviously a lot of horror stories in some of these places where you've got someone that nobody's going to listen to, and being the fact that you do have shitty people on the planet, they're going to take advantage of them in whatever way that they can, whether it's monetary, sexual, whatever, anything that they can possibly get out of it. But I think that there does need to be a place for the people that their reality is so dissociated. They think they're saving somebody by killing this demon, but it's not a demon. It's
it's their neighbor.
It's their neighbor, Charles, 16-year-old kid, or something else of the sort.
Well, and there is still some degree of that. I mean, you can still be committed.
They either wind up homeless, or they wind up in jail
because they did whatever they did.
Neither society nor a prison is the best way to deal with them, because now you've got a nut in a penal colony, and it what you really want from a jail, even though society thinks it's all about punishment, that's kind of a form of hell or torture or whatever. This is so awful, I shouldn't do it again. But what a jail should do, which it's not doing, is, okay, this was wrong. It should be a re-education place where you can reintroduce them as a productive member of society. And the last thing that you would want to do under that kind of umbrella is drop a nut in the middle of it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I personally never want to drop a nut. Right.
In a penal area.
Right in the middle of a prison. Yeah. That just seems like it would be bad juju
you've come
all
close
around.
to that before. I imagine if anybody on the podcast has more experience with that particular area, I'm not aware of it.
So, wait a minute, hold on. Wait.
Dan is the testicular expert on the podcast.
Oh, okay. Yeah, as far as testicles and nerves and I probably know more than a lot of people about that subject these days. That is fair. Yeah, I just an economist, a healthcare expert. I'm down with if you had like a Skid Row to set up a vaccine clinic for everything from flus to standard diseases that run through populations like that, et cetera. Because again, herd immunity and keeping everybody healthy. I'm good with giving them, certain basic things that we can, but you're just never going to make them adhere. They have an alternative society view, and
you can't make them want to.
No.
And a lot of
them don't. And that's just a fact, so again, and that's where I get conservative, is when you're spending my money. I don't care to spend money on social programs. it just pisses me off when I see that being absolutely squandered. Whatever it is you're trying to fix, hey, here's one that we can all agree on, right? Roads. We pay all this money with our tags and our emissions and all of that, and it's supposed to go to fixing roads. But then I'm blowing a damn shock out of my car because I hit a pothole that has its own zip code. Those are the things that piss me off, right?
Yeah.
Or you've got, right, you want to take my money and spend it on homeless whatever, and it's this big beautiful building and no one's using it, or it's like 8% occupied, and I'm like, there you go. Like, I don't care that you took my money for the betterment of humanity. I just want to see some bettermenting. That's all I want, right? I want to see it work. Same with, when they made pot legal out here, the big thing was pumping it back into the schools. Not pot. Yeah, not pot. I as soon as I can, I was like, oops. Pumping the money, the profits back into schools, I believe, was one of the places they were going to do. Same with lottery money in the South.
What a scam, bro.
Right? And the thing
North
is
Carolina education lottery, my ass.
Right? And therein, that's when my conservative side comes out and I start getting pissed off and I say, no, fuck that. I'm okay with you taking my money. I'm okay with you starting a lottery, and I don't personally play the lottery. I think I did when it was up to $1 billion, because who the fuck doesn't want to be an insta-billionaire? Just saying. But that's when my conservative side comes out, is when I see money being squandered. I'm going, how much did I pay? I get an annual bonus every year, and they take something like 35% of my annual bonus. Now, yeah, I know, Dan gets a bonus and they take money out of it. No, it's not that. It's how fucking much they take. You're taking a third of my bonus
for no
to put
real
it towards
reason.
taxes, right, for things that I'm just not seeing the benefit of, right? I'm seeing, the DMVs are shutting down and there's only so many because, we can't afford to keep them open and all that. Okay, well, again, where are my tax dollars, tag dollars, emissions dollars? Where's all of that going? Certainly not to keep Denver air clean. So,
well, what pisses me off is privately owned toll roads.
Oh God.
Privately owned toll roads. It's like, holy fuck. Toll lanes, toll whatever else. It's like, listen, I don't mind because originally that was the way that you used to do it. You would build a road, you would build a bridge, you had to front the costs, and if you were going to recoup those because you really realistically weren't collecting the tax dollars to pay that off, you made it a toll road until the tolls paid for the road or the bridge or what have you. And then those damn things got removed. Now you have private corporations who pay for part of building a road. The road gets built, and then not only are all of those fees not going to the state to pay for the road, they are going to that private corporation in perpetuity, and those private corporations word those contracts in such a fashion that as if there is a traffic accident, some sort of anything that inhibits the use of the road, if the road is not getting used enough to meet a certain criteria, the state has to turn around and pay them fucking money.
Out here, it's 470, and a big chunk of 470 is owned by is it Filipino company?
No way.
Yeah, and that's like Doug was saying. It's just it's this money generating thing that will be here forever. It's pretty fucking ridiculous. Yeah,
There's a highway in North Carolina, I-77, that runs through Charlotte, and it gets too congested all the time. And they were deciding whether they wanted to reduce traffic by widening the road or just making it a toll road.
Mm-hmm.
and so they made it a toll road to reduce traffic.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, this is the dumbest fucking thing.
So people that can't afford to use it are once again punished.
Your broke ass takes the side roads.
Yeah, your broke ass takes the side roads in a vehicle that's probably barely hanging on, overheating, more tire wear, more gas,
more miles.
Right. So again, fuck you for being financially, not wealthy or something. I don't know.
Yeah, fuck you. You should have been born richer.
There you go. But just remember, the bears are libertarian.
Liber-Bearians.